foundation course. So in the last lecture we discussed about the digestive system of man, where I completed the alimentary canal and the digestive glands, and today I'll continue with the mechanism of digestion. So we'll start with the mechanism of digestion. Well, so we had already discussed that nutrition is sum total of all the processes by which the food is taken in, digested, absorbed, assimilated, and the undigested food is thrown out by the process called as egestion. So we finished with the alimentary canal and the digestive glands, and now the mechanism of digestion. So what exactly is digestion? Digestion is converting the complex food, the non-absorbable food or non-diffusible food, into simple food, absorbable food or diffusible food. So actually digestion is defined as converting the complex, non-absorbable or non-diffusible food into simple food. Now this digestion gets completed in two different ways. One is the mechanical digestion and the other one is the chemical digestion. So there are two ways of digestion. One is mechanical digestion, and the other one is the chemical digestion. Now as the name itself is indicating, mechanical digestion, it is actually a physical step in which the larger food particles are converted into the smaller food particles. So mechanical digestion is just converting the larger food particles, see this is a food particle, converting it into smaller food particles. So it gets broken down into smaller pieces, and when it is broken down into smaller pieces, now here the surface area is less. Here it increases the surface area, and this surface area is increased for the enzymatic action. Now enzymes are helping in chemical digestion. This is the actual process of digestion, where the complex substances, the non-absorbable substances, are converted into simple substances. So the main digestion is the chemical digestion, where the complex food is converted into the simple food. Now this complex food, for example, I can say maybe the larger complex food substances like complex carbohydrates, example polysaccharides I will give you. Now polysaccharides are complex carbohydrates which are made up of, poly means many, saccharide means sugar. So many sugar units join together and form a polysaccharide, and with the help of enzymes these polysaccharides are converted into monosaccharides. Now what are monosaccharides? Single sugar units. For example, when the starch is broken down, starch is a polysaccharide, and glucose, fructose, these are the monosaccharides. So polysaccharides is a complex nutrient and monosaccharide is a simple nutrient. Similarly, when I am talking about say proteins, so proteins are made up of many amino acids. Proteins are made up of number of amino acids linked together by peptide bond, and when the proteins are digested, they will be getting converted into amino acids. So amino acids are the simplest food particles like monosaccharides, that is the digested carbohydrates are monosaccharides, digested proteins are amino acids. Similarly, even we can talk about the lipids. Now lipids, when the lipids are digested, they will be getting converted into fatty acids and glycerol. Most of the lipids are triglycerides, so they will be producing 3 molecules of fatty acids plus glycerol. Now this is actually the enzymatic process, the chemical digestion which takes place in the presence of certain enzymes. Like the carbohydrate digesting enzymes will convert the polysaccharides into monosaccharides. Protein digesting enzymes will convert the proteins into amino acids, and the lipid digesting enzymes will convert the lipids into fatty acids and glycerol. So these are the two ways of digestion, mechanical digestion and chemical digestion. Now what exactly is this mechanical digestion? I said here the larger food particles are converted into smaller food particles, and mechanical digestion occurs in our buccal cavity also, So in our mouth cavity or in our buccal cavity, when we are chewing the food, mastication of the food or chewing of the food will convert the larger food substances into smaller food substances. So in the buccal cavity, chewing occurs. And this chewing is a mechanical digestion. Similarly, in our stomach also, the food is subjected to certain movements. This kind of churning movement takes place, which will break the larger food particles into smaller food particles. So in stomach, churning of the food takes place. So chewing and churning, these are actually types of mechanical digestion, and chemical digestion takes place in the presence of enzymes. Now, which enzymes are helping in digestion, which are the main sites of the digestion, will continue once I clear the board. So we'll now continue with the mechanism of the digestion. So digestion mainly occurs in our small intestine, that is duodenum. But some amount of digestion also takes place in our buccal cavity and in the stomach. So we'll start with the digestion in buccal cavity. So digestion in our buccal cavity or mouth cavity or oral cavity. So you'll find that in our buccal cavity, the food is masticated, that is what is the mechanical digestion, and during chewing or mastication it is mixed with saliva. Now this saliva has only one starch splitting enzyme called as salivary amylase, which acts on starch, but not the entire starch. Only about 30% of the cooked starch is digested in our buccal cavity. So 30% of starch is digested. Now actually starch is a polysaccharide. If it is getting completely digested, then it should form monosaccharide. But here the complete digestion also doesn't occur. It is partially digested, forming a disaccharide, and that disaccharide is maltose. So starch, 30% of the starch is converted into maltose, and the enzyme is salivary amylase, which is also called as ptyalin. The spelling is P-T-Y-A-L-I-N, P is silent here. So salivary amylase or ptyalin, which is having a pH of around 6.8. So at a pH of 6.8, salivary amylase is functional, and it converts 30% of the starch into maltose. Starch is a polysaccharide and maltose is a disaccharide. So the complete digestion of starch has not taken place. The next site for the digestion is our stomach. Now, in our buccal cavity, when this digestion is taking place, when the food is getting mixed with the saliva, it gets converted into a ball-like structure, and that ball-like structure is called as bolus. So that bolus, the ball-like structure, with the help of the tongue, we push it in our pharynx. This process is called as swallowing or deglutition. So deglutition or swallowing is a voluntary process where we push in the food, and now the food which enters in the pharynx undergoes peristaltic movement, and by this peristaltic movement it comes in the stomach. So the next digestion takes place in stomach. Digestion in stomach. So stomach is also not the main site for the digestion. In stomach we can find some gastric glands, and these gastric glands are actually present in the innermost lining. So when you take a section of the stomach, a transverse section, you will find that it is having on the outer side a layer of epithelium, which is called as serosa. Epithelial layer is there, called as the serosa. Inside the serosa you will find a thick layer of muscles, smooth muscles, which are involuntary muscles, and that thick layer of the smooth muscles, the second layer, which is called as the muscularis. Inside the muscularis you find a loose connective tissue layer, and that is called as the submucosa. Loose connective tissue layer called as submucosa. And again, inside the submucosa, there is another layer called as the mucosa. And this mucosa in the stomach, this mucosa of the stomach, if the stomach is empty, it has some small foldings. So you can draw like this. These are the foldings of the mucosa. And this mucosa has, if this mucosa is of the stomach, then in the stomach you will find small foldings, and these foldings are called as rugae. And in this rugae you find some glands, and these glands are the gastric glands. Gastric glands. Now similarly, when you continue from the stomach to the small intestine, and if we take a transverse section of the small intestine, we can find the same layers. That is the outermost layer called as serosa, the second layer of muscles called as muscularis, the third layer of loose connective tissue called as submucosa, and the fourth layer called as the mucosa. The mucosa of the stomach is having small foldings, irregular foldings when it is empty, called as rugae. And in this mucosa of stomach we find some gastric glands. These gastric glands secrete gastric juice. If it is the mucosa of small intestine, then in the small intestine, the mucosa of small intestine, it will have some long foldings, finger-like foldings. I'll just rub this and draw it here only. So the mucosa of small intestine has long finger-like foldings, and these foldings are called as, these foldings of the small intestine are called as villi. So in the stomach there are small irregular foldings, but in the intestine there are long finger-like foldings called as the villi. And in these villi we can see some intestinal glands, and these intestinal glands will secrete intestinal juice. So in the next part, after the digestion in the stomach, we will be continuing with the digestion in the intestine. So there we will be talking about these intestinal glands also. Right now I am talking only about the gastric glands present in the stomach. So you will find that digestion in stomach is carried out with the help of gastric juice secreted from gastric glands, the glands which are present in the mucosa of stomach. Now this gastric juice has HCl with a pH of around 1.8. The gastric juice doesn't have any enzyme for the digestion of carbohydrates nor for the digestion of lipids, but it has enzyme for the digestion of proteins. But that enzyme is also present in inactive form, and that enzyme is pepsinogen. So the enzyme that is present here is pepsinogen. Now this pepsinogen is actually an inactive enzyme which gets converted into active form, and the active form is called as pepsin. The active form is called as the pepsin. Now how this pepsinogen gets converted into pepsin? This is with the help of HCl. So HCl, which is having a pH of around 1.8. So HCl will convert the inactive pepsinogen into active pepsin. Now this pepsin is a protein digesting enzyme. So it will act on proteins. Again, not all proteins, but maximum proteins. It will act upon the proteins and convert the proteins into, actually the end products of the protein digestion should be amino acids. But here again, partial digestion will take place and proteins get converted into peptones and proteoses, not into amino acids. So proteins are converted into peptones and proteoses with the help of enzyme called as pepsin. So that was the digestion in stomach. So I'll just repeat this now. So the mechanism of digestion begins in our buccal cavity. In the buccal cavity, 30% of the starch gets converted into maltose with the help of a starch splitting enzyme called as salivary amylase or thymin, and the food gets converted into a ball-like structure, that is what is called as the bolus. And this bolus, during swallowing, we will push it into the pharynx, and from the pharynx it will move up to our stomach with the help of the actions called as the peristaltic movement. Now when this food comes in the stomach, it has partially digested starch, and this food gets converted into a semi-solid paste-like thing when it mixes with the gastric juice, and now the food which is in a paste-like form is called as chyme. So here, like the food in the buccal cavity is called as the bolus, the food in the stomach is called as chyme, C-H-Y-M-E. And the gastric juice has HCl, which will convert the inactive pepsinogen into pepsin. Pepsin will act on proteins and it will convert it into peptones and proteases. Now the food will come into the small intestine. So the next is digestion in small intestine. So digestion actually gets completed in small intestine. So in small intestine. So as I said, that stomach or intestine, when you take the transverse section, you can find on the outer side it is having serosa, inside muscularis, then the third layer is the submucosa, and the innermost layer is the mucosa. The mucosa of the stomach has gastric glands, and the mucosa of small intestine has intestinal glands. So in the small intestine, the food gets completely digested because it comes in contact with three different types of the juices. So here you will find that the small intestine has fluid coming from the liver, which is stored in the gallbladder. That is what is called as the bile juice. So with the help of the bile juice, emulsification of the fats takes place. Next you will find that there is pancreas. So it will be producing pancreatic juice. And finally, the digestion gets completed by the juice secreted from intestinal glands called as the intestinal juice. So this intestinal juice will complete the process of digestion. So digestion in small intestine takes place with the help of bile juice, pancreatic juice and intestinal juice. Now only the digestion in small intestine, I'll write again. You can take the screenshot, make short notes wherever needed, and draw a rough sketch also. Okay. So now we will start with the digestion in small intestine, where the complete digestion occurs as it comes in contact with the three different types of the juices: the bile juice, pancreatic juice and the intestinal juice. So let's see the action of the bile juice. Now bile juice is actually produced in liver, stored and concentrated in gallbladder. And when the food comes in from the stomach, this is the stomach, when the food comes from the stomach into the duodenum, then we will find that from the bile duct, say this is the bile duct, here is the pancreatic duct, this is the pancreas. So the two ducts join together. So first the bile juice comes. This bile juice doesn't have any enzymes, but it helps in digestion by bringing about emulsification of the fats. So it will convert the fats into some small droplets which will help the enzymes to act upon it. So the bile juice only helps in emulsification of fats. Emulsification of fats. That's all. Next we will find the second juice that is coming is the pancreatic juice from the pancreas. So from the pancreas, the pancreatic juice comes. This pancreatic juice has all the enzymes for the digestion of proteins, carbohydrates as well as fats. But again, it doesn't convert them into the simplest end products. There is a partial digestion of all proteins also, fats also and carbohydrates also. So what are the enzymes that are present in the pancreatic juice? I'll clear off this. This is of no use. We have already discussed this in the alimentary canal and digestive glands. So the pancreatic juice has certain enzymes. One of the important enzyme here is trypsinogen. This trypsinogen is actually an inactive enzyme, and this trypsinogen gets converted into active form called as trypsin. Now trypsinogen is converted into trypsin. This is the inactive enzyme of the pancreatic juice. It gets active and converts into trypsin in the presence of an enzyme from intestinal juice. That clearly indicates that the intestinal glands have to get functional before the pancreatic juice starts its function. So pancreatic juice has the inactive enzyme called as trypsinogen, but that gets activated into trypsin only in the presence of enterokinase. So this enterokinase is secreted by intestinal gland. So intestinal gland will secrete enterokinase that will convert the inactive trypsinogen into trypsin. So trypsinogen is an inactive enzyme present in the pancreatic juice which gets converted into active enzyme, that is trypsin, in the presence of enterokinase which is secreted by the intestinal glands. Now this trypsin is a protein digesting enzyme and it will act on the proteins. So some proteins have already got digested into peptones and proteoses, but not all the proteins. So whatever the proteins are there, so on those proteins, the proteins which have already got converted into peptones, some of which have already got converted into proteoses. So the trypsin will act on proteins, peptones, proteoses and convert it into dipeptides. So again, amino acids have not been formed. So that is only a partial digestion of the proteins which is taking place in the presence of trypsin. So trypsin, an active protein digesting enzyme which is converting the left out proteins, partially digested proteins, that is the peptones and proteoses, into dipeptides. So protein digestion is also not complete. Next enzyme you find here is the pancreatic amylase. So we said that in the buccal cavity 30% of the starch has been digested. So the remaining starch now again gets converted into maltose in the presence of enzyme called as the pancreatic amylase. So that is the pancreatic amylase. So pancreatic amylase will convert the remaining starch into maltose. So that is all about the carbohydrate digestion. Now next, coming to the digestion of the lipids. So the lipids have already undergone emulsification. The emulsification which has been taken place with the help of bile salts present in the bile juice. So the emulsified fats are acted upon by an enzyme called as lipase. So there is an enzyme called as lipase secreted by the pancreas, so you can call it as the pancreatic lipase. So pancreatic lipase will act on the emulsified fats and convert it into, now fats, as I said, they are the triglycerides, so they will be getting converted into diglycerides and monoglycerides. So I'll write di and monoglycerides. Again, the fatty acids and glycerol has not been formed. So this is again a partial digestion of the lipids. So partial digestion of proteins, carbohydrates and lipids takes place with the help of pancreatic juice. And the complete digestion will take place only in the presence of intestinal juice, that is secreted by intestinal glands. So the last part we will take up now is the intestinal juice secreted by the intestinal gland, also called as succus entericus. So succus entericus is nothing but the intestinal juice secreted by the intestinal gland present in the villi of small intestine. Now already we said that this enterokinase is actually a secretion of the intestinal gland. So they have already got activated, and this enterokinase is must for the activation of trypsinogen into trypsin that will initiate the process of the protein digestion. So you can see that the proteins have been partially digested here and they have got converted into dipeptides. Now the dipeptides will be acted upon by the enzyme called as dipeptidase. So you will find that the dipeptides final digestion takes place, and finally the dipeptides will get converted into amino acids, and this takes place in the presence of an enzyme present in the intestinal juice called as dipeptidase. So that is dipeptidase, which will convert the dipeptides into the final end product of the proteins, that is amino acid. Similarly, now we have seen that maltose, from the starch maltose has been formed, and now this maltose will further get digested, forming two glucose units. So glucose, a monosaccharide, plus glucose. The two glucose units together were forming the maltose. Maltose is a disaccharide, and now the maltose breaks down, forming two glucose units, and that takes place in the presence of an enzyme called as maltase. Similarly, if we have taken sucrose, then the enzyme called as sucrase will act, and this sucrase will convert the sucrose into the cane sugar, into glucose plus fructose. Glucose and fructose, both are again monosaccharides. If we have taken milk, carbohydrates present in the milk, that is what is called as the lactose, then the lactose will be acted upon by lactase, getting converted into lactose and galactose. So that is how the digestion of carbohydrates will take place. Digestion of maltose into glucose and glucose with the help of maltase. Digestion of sucrose into glucose and fructose with the help of sucrase. Digestion of lactose with the help of lactase into lactose and galactose. And finally, the lipids, which have already got converted into diglycerides and monoglycerides, they will be again acted upon by another enzyme called as the intestinal lipase. Same enzyme, that is lipase. So the lipase will act on the diglycerides and monoglycerides. So diglycerides and monoglycerides will finally get converted into fatty acids and glycerol. So that is how the digestion of lipids gets completed, and that is with the help of an enzyme called as lipase. This is how the digestion of proteins, carbohydrates and lipids gets completed in the intestine. So in the intestine, the food is mixed with three different types of the juice: bile juice, pancreatic juice and intestinal juice. And when it mixes with the three different types of the juice, it gets converted into a liquid form, and that liquid form of the food in the intestine is called as chyle. So I said that in the buccal cavity it is called as bolus, in the stomach it is called as chyme, and in the small intestine it is called as the chyle. And this chyle is actually formed when the food gets mixed with bile juice, pancreatic juice and intestinal juice. So bile juice doesn't have any enzyme, but it helps in digestion because it brings about the emulsification of the fats, and only when the fats are emulsified the enzyme can act upon it. Next, the pancreatic juice is having all the enzymes for the digestion of protein, for the digestion of carbohydrate and for the digestion of lipids also, but it doesn't form the final end products of the digestion. And the end products of the digestion are formed only in the presence of intestinal juice secreted by intestinal gland. The intestinal juice, also called as succus entericus, which is having all the enzymes like dipeptidase, maltase, sucrase, lactase, lipase, which will form the end products of digestion. So that was the mechanism of digestion. So students, in the next lecture we will continue with what is the mechanism of absorption, and a bit about disorders of the digestive system also we will take up.